Hello again from Western Australia. This is Raylene, your laughter crafter. I hope you're having a good week, getting on with your craft. How about the other two crafts that we did in the last couple of weeks? The first one, you might remember, was the accordion photo album, and last week we did the jewellery wind chime. A few of you told me you were going to have a go at them, so let me know. Make sure you put your comments up and your photographs if you've made any of these things. In a minute, I'm going to show you the craft that I've got for you this week. But before we do, I've got a really great joke, so strap in for this. My little friend Emma's over there. I'll ask her this one. Emma, how many women with premenstrual syndrome does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know. How many?
17.
Why 17?
Because I said so! He always gets a laugh. Okay, on with the real stuff, which is the craft. So this is what we're making this week. I've done for you these gorgeous little silver air dry clay sardines, and they're all different, and they're shiny and sparkly because I've varnished them. And there's a little bowl full there. In addition to the sardines, you'll see that I've also got a bowl which I've added silver leaf underneath to and varnished that, and on top I've decoupaged with a paper napkin and varnished. Well, here are all the bits and pieces I've gathered to make our bowl of sardines. And of course, a bowl of sardines is done in two parts. We have the bowl and the sardines. So here on my right, we have the bits and pieces that we're going to use to do the bowl. First of all, I have the bowl. So I picked up this bowl from an op shop. It's one of these wooden ones. So we're going to work with that one. We're also going to need silver leaf because this is what's going underneath the bowl. Silver leaf is same as gold leaf, it's just silver coloured, and there it is there. Okay, so that's the silver leaf. Lots of different brands. The brand that I'm using is Expressit, and this is the size that you're going to need. It's called gold size, but it works on copper leaf, silver leaf, it doesn't matter. It's called gold size, but it's just size for gilding. We're also going to need a paper napkin. I'm choosing this one, sort of like a bit of a nautical theme to work with the sardines. So got just one of those is going to be enough because the napkin is going on this top side of the bowl, and of course the size is going on the underneath part. We also are going to need the PVA glue, which I will water down with a little bit of water. That's to stick the paper napkin onto the top of the bowl. Just a damp cloth in case I need to wipe my hands down. Always work with a rubber glove when I'm using glues and things like that. A glue gun, I'm going to do some extra leaf work, silver leaf work on the top of the bowl, on top of this paper napkin when it's finished. And some sandpaper just in case I need to smooth up the edges as I go. So that's taken care of the bowl side of things. And then the sardines. For the sardines, I need some air dry clay. You can get this in white and you can get it in buff colour and that sort of thing. It doesn't matter, we're going to paint it. So this is what I'm using, Boyle Crafty Clay. There are other brands available, so grab whatever you want. I need a nice hard surface to work on. I've just got an old chopping board and some parchment paper. There, I also got a little bowl of water that's going to keep my clay nice and workable and my fingers working well with them, with the clay. A sharp knife for cutting the clay. And this knife is going to be used for marking on the clay as well. And I've got a couple of little objects that I might use to make marks, to make my little sardine fish. So I've got a screw there and a bobby pin, which might make scales. So we'll see how we go with that. I'm also going to paint the little sardines when they're dry. So I've got some silver paint that's going to be in the main colour for my sardines, and I think I might do some dry brushing with black on top. So I have a brush for that, and I use these little baby muffin moulds, which I cut up, and I use these for my paint. They're fantastic, and whenever I have finished with my paint, I might have some left in there. Instead of washing the paint down the sink, that's not great for the environment. I just let it go dry and it just peels off and I can pop it in the bin. That's a fantastic idea. So we're going to start with the sardines, making our little air dry clay sardines. So I'm taking the clay out of the packet. It's a really good idea if you're halfway through a packet to keep it well sealed up so it doesn't dry out. So I'm going to tear that back a little bit. Now I'm going to take off my rings because I'm not putting gloves on for this process. It's much more tactile and much easier to work with the clay with just my fingers and not the gloves. So I'm taking my rings off and I'm going to use a sharp knife and I'm going to cut probably about 1/2 centimeter or kind of 1/4 inch of clay. That is more than enough for my little sardine. Probably I don't need that much at all, probably about that much. But let's pop that back in there. Again, cover it right over straight away over there to the side and moisten that clay, and I'm going to give it a good knead. I want to make sure that any air bubbles or whatever inside the clay are worked out. So make it into a ball, and I think last time I made these sardines, I think even though they're all slightly different in shape and in size and in markings, and some are slightly bigger than others, the average size was around about the size of a walnut in the shell. So that's about that size. I hope that's showing up okay in the camera. All right, so I'm not going to use a rolling pin because I actually prefer my little sardines to be a little bit wonky, if you like. They're still a little bit long, so I'm just going to chop a little bit off and pop it over there. A little bit more water because it's just needs it. So that little sardine at the moment is around about 3 inches long or about 8 centimeters long, and I've just made it into a bit of a sausage. Now I'm just going to, it's kind of wet and slippery. In fact, I can add a little bit more water just to make it more workable. And I'm just flattening it down to around about 1/4 inch thickness, and I'll lift it up and show you how thick that is, around about that. And you'll find this is going to take a couple of days. These will take a couple of days to dry, so I'm not going to actually paint these until they're really dry, which will be about 48 hours or so from now. So that's quite a big sardine there, and can you see that I'm making this one curve around because sometimes that's what they look like. You can keep them straight if you want. I'm going to make a bunch of these, and there'll be different sizes, and some will curve, some will stay straight, but the general shape of a sardine is like so. But hey, you can make them whatever shape you want. I'm not going to the fuss of putting on little fins or anything like that. I'm just doing the main body shape. Then I'm going to come down here. I hope this is showing up on the white background, but I'm going to come down here and I'm going to squeeze with my fingers in there, because of course their shape, body shape goes in like that. I'm going to cut a little bit off there because that's still too long, and then I'm going to get my finger and just push it in there to make their little tail shape. Now I'll lift this up just in case it's difficult to see. Still needs a little bit of work, but that's the basic shape of him. All right, like so. Okay, I like that. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to use my little bobby pin or hair clip, as we call them. I'm nice and gooey with the clay, and that's okay. I'm going to dip this end of the bobby clip into the water, and I'm going to give this little fella, or it could be a girl, I don't know. How do you tell the difference between a boy sardine and a girl sardine? I don't know, but anyway, there we go. So that sort of delineates his head, doesn't it? Now to make, and if it's sort of, if you get ridges, just smooth it over and go over it a couple of times. Dip that bobby pin in the water to clean it off. Now to make an eye, I'm just going to use this end of the bobby pin again, and I'm going to go around in a little circle, like so. Smooth it out again, and go again, so I don't have any sticky uppy bits of clay. Okay, great. And a little dot in the center. Okay, now he needs to have a mouth, so I'm going to push with this rounded end of the bobby pin. I'm going to push just in the end there and make a little line there for his mouth. Now lift it up and let you have a closer look at what I've done. You see his eye and his mouth, and now He needs some sort of markings, doesn't he? Well, he doesn't have to. If you want to have a nice smooth sardine, that's fine. But I'm going to turn him around this way, and I'm going to use this curved end of the bobby pin, a little bit of water on it, and I'm going to make some little scales. So I'm just pulling gently back towards myself. I'm not really taking chunks of clay out. I'm just sort of making little divots, if you like. And I've got a fork there, and I might do one in a minute with the fork and just make little holes, so it'll be a slightly different pattern. And every now and then I'm popping this back into the water to sort of clean out the bits of clay. But that's looking quite cute. And just keep going there until you get right down to the end. So I'm going to turn this off now and continue and show you in a minute. But I'll show you what I've done up to now. I'll continue in a second with those scales. What I'll do just before I turn this off is go back to this end of the bobby pin here and just make some little lines for his tail. Little lines like this. And then let you have a little look at that. And I'll continue with the scales and we'll have a look in a minute. So I have gone ahead and shaped two other little sardines. You see they're different shapes. And using that little bobby clip again, I'm just shaping the head shape and the eyes and making sure that I keep the clay moist all the time. Making little tail shapes as well. It's really fun actually working with the clay because it's very tactile and very responsive when you want to carve something into it. And of course, if you make a mistake with whatever it is you're carving into the clay, you can just smoosh it over or even pick it up and roll it back into a ball and start all over again. If for some reason it starts to dry out, we just wet it a little bit more, add some moisture, and it comes back. Now I've used a fork here. You can see that I'm just making little forky marks with that. And on the third one, I found this screw. I don't know what it was from. Maybe something's about to fall apart because it's missing its screw. But anyway, I'm just rolling that screw along the body of that little fish. Now, if you're going to do this, actually take my advice and find a longer screw. This was quite fiddly to do this. But you'll see in a minute that the effect was quite good, actually. Quite different to all the other little sardines. He's got his own thing going on, this fella. And I decided instead of using the bobby pin to make little lines on his tail, you'll see in a second, that I used the screw to make the marks on his tail. That made quite different marks. So there we go, pressing the screw into the tail like that to make different marks. I really enjoyed experimenting with these little fish and making lots of different ones. There's that first one with the bobby pin scales, the fork, and the third one, a little bit hard to see, the third one has the screw marks. Later on when it's dry you'll get a better look at it. I just lift it up and put it on that rack and lets a little bit more airflow get around. And they take about 2 days to dry. So that's them. So now I'm just demonstrating how to tidy up these little sardines. They've been drying for 2 days, so they're quite hard. They probably have a little bit of moisture left in them, but they're very easy to handle now. And you don't need anything sharp, you just need a regular butter knife. I keep a butter knife that I use for my craft. And I'm just taking off any little bits that look a bit dodgy or sharp and stop it from feeling really smooth and tactile, because that's what I'm going for with these sardines. I'm not going for perfection because I think perfection is overrated, and personally I think that perfection is a bit of a killer of your joy. And for me, doing craft is all about joy, and I certainly don't want to go for perfection. So I'm just tidying up with this little butter knife and making it a bit neater, making it a bit smoother. And there we go. Dust them off and they're ready to be painted and varnished. So all my little sardines are painted silver, and I just use an acrylic paint, which is water-based, and it's very quick and easy. So if you like the look of the silver little sardines, you can leave them like that. But I have done one with some dry brushing of black on top of the silver. So if I put them side by side, you can see the difference in the colour. They're not yet varnished, so they're not shiny like they will be, but you might like to keep them silver, or you might like to do some dry brushing, which I'll show you in a moment with the black, or you might have a mixture. So I'm going to take my brush, and I've got my little dab of black paint here. And the idea with dry brushing is not to go ahead and start brushing that dab of paint onto the fish. You get a little piece of paper, I've got some toweling paper here, and get most of the brush off. So what you're left with is just tiniest little bit, just enough to sort of give it a bit of a nudge, like that. Then I'm going to get my slightly damp cloth and go back over that and take a lot of it off. So I'm just left with little bits of black in some of the divots of those fish scales. So what you're getting is a little bit of a patina. It gives you that look of age. You might like that. And there it is compared to the silver that doesn't have it. Or you might like to stick with the silver. So I'm going to probably do half of them like this, and then come back in a little while and varnish them, and that's our little fish finished. So this is where I am applying the paper napkin onto the surface of this bowl that I picked up at the op shop. I've actually given it a rub down with the sandpaper just to give it a bit of a key to take this glue. First thing I need to do is take that bottom layer of that napkin off. So you see that I've peeled that off. I've got a mixture of the PVA glue and water, about 50-50. There's me rubbing down the bowl with that sandpaper. Just roughing it up a little bit. You don't really need to do it for very long. Just a minute or so is plenty. And then wipe any dust off. Now I'm just making some strips of paper, strips with this paper napkin, and breaking it into small pieces. If you have the pieces that are too big going onto a curved surface, you'll have more wrinkles. So don't go too big with the pieces. Because I've chosen a paper napkin that has a fairly overall design. It's not like it's a picture of a panda bear or something. It's just a sort of an overall picture with, I guess, what is meant to be pictures of seaweed or something, which I thought was actually a quite apt kind of paper to use for a bowl that's going to hold little sardines. Quite happy to get glue all over my fingers, but you can see that I'm just overlapping these pieces and putting glue on top of the surface and not just underneath. And that's really all you do. Keep going until it's covered. On the underside, you'll see that I tucked over some of the pieces of tissue paper, and what I'll do when this is dry is I'll come back with the sandpaper and just sand that off, and when this is completely dry I will varnish it. But later, when I take these edges off, that's when I will put the silver size on the underside. So I'll let that dry now. Now the bowl is dry, or the paper is completely dry on there. So I'm going to take the sandpaper and just take off these lower bits that are hanging down. I wanted to sandpaper the bottom edge of this anyway, ready for when I add the silver leaf onto here. So I'm not going to make sure I take it right back to the rim. I'm okay with it coming down just a little bit, but any sort of rough foldy bits I'm just taking off. So I'm ready to apply the gold size on the underside of this bowl, ready to take the metallic leaf So I've just put a little bowl here to prop this up. There's the size. And I use an old brush when I do this because sometimes this is rubbery glue, this size. And it's not like paint that just easily washes out. I do work very hard to clean up these brushes to get the size out, but sometimes it's just, you can just imagine it's like liquid chewing gum, and it's not really that easy to do. So I try to apply it quite evenly, so you can see that I'm spreading around any bits that seem to be on there thicker than the rest. And I'll just keep doing this until it's applied all the way around, including up on this rim here. So I'll be doing right up to there. I won't be doing the underside in here, but I'll be doing right up to there. So while that size is drying, I'll show you a couple of other pieces from a long time ago. This little wooden bowl I got at the op shop, I put gold size on it, but you can see there are green patches. And I quite like them, but that's not really what's meant to happen when you put on gold leaf. The reason it went green is because I didn't handle the gold leaf with gloves on, and so it oxidized. The leaf oxidized with my skin oils, and it's turned green. So I leave it, and I still use it as varnished, and so it's fine, but it's quite an interesting lesson learned there. This is something I made from paper mache and a bottle, and I covered it over, and cardboard as well, you see, and I took the raven poem, photocopied it, tore it up, stuck it on, stained it with tea, put on some gold leaf in patches and around the rim. Then I made a special bird out of the paper mache, and that's the raven on this side. It's got some calligraphy as well. But so I remembered that I had something else hanging up just near my kitchen sink, which is a good reminder for me every time I do the dishes. This is a big wooden plaque that I did some paint pouring on some years ago, and I was quite happy with the results. Quite pretty. There's my little signature down there. So that says 2020. November 2020. Yep, I can just see that. And so what I did was I used a dedicated brush that I use for the size, and I brushed on the wording, "The grass is greener when you water it." And I let that go tacky 5 or 10 minutes, and then I applied the silver leaf, and then I brushed off the excess, and I'm left with some lovely silver calligraphy on this paint poured plaque. So I'm quite happy with that one. So that's something else that you can do with leaf. So now I'm going to apply the silver leaf onto this size. It's been sitting there about 8 minutes, and it's quite ready to take this on. It's quite tacky. So I've got gloves on both my hands, and I'm careful not to get any size onto the glove because it just makes a problem, and everything sticks to everything else. That's very delicate, that silver leaf. So I'm just going to continue to apply it all the way around, and it doesn't matter if it has wrinkles in it, but it's looking quite nice. So Emma, what do you call a spider with 10 eyes?
I don't know.
A spider. Good. So I've finished applying all the silver leaf onto the size, and you'll see that there's all sorts of little bits sticking out. So I just come along with a dry brush that's completely dry, it hasn't been used for the size, and I'm just brushing away. You can also use your hands. You'll see that I've got my glove on my hand there, and I'm just rubbing it away. So where the leaf isn't touching any of the size, it's just loose. It's not going to stick because it's not attached. So it's going to fly away. You'll see little bits of it falling away there. Keep rubbing away until it's all gone. And don't forget to use the correct glue, and the correct glue is gold size. If you're doing this for the first time, maybe try a flat surface. It's a little bit harder working on a curved surface, but you know, this has worked out okay, so I'm quite happy with it. So I've brought my little fishies to my outside area where I've got lots of ventilation so I can varnish them. They're looking really pretty, and they're all quite different, and a couple of them you'll see that I've put the black paint on, and the rest I've left silver, and they're all really lovely. I accidentally dropped one. This one here I dropped on his nose. You see that I've kind of fixed up his nose. We're not ableist here at the Laughter Crafter. I did drop another one and shatter it to pieces actually. So these are the three that I demonstrated. That's the one that I used the screw on, and I think that's turned out really quite interesting. So this is the varnish. It's a clear varnish, ultra gloss, that I'm going to use. Always use in ventilation and make sure that you wear a mask and you're careful not to breathe it in. I've given it a really good shake, and I'm going to give it a light spray right over all of these little fish and turn it over in a minute. Turn them over when it's dry as well. So I've added some gold size around the rim, and I wasn't really precious about it. I got it deliberately wobbly, and I put some little squiggles down the bottom of the bowl, and it's all rough. It's all, you can see that it's flaky because I haven't yet brushed it. So I picked up a very clean dry brush, and I'm brushing off all the bits that haven't adhered to the sides. They're just flaking away, just like it did on that calligraphy, coming away beautifully. And you can see now a little bit, you can see the little squiggles that I've made down the bottom of that bowl. Took about 10 minutes or so for that size to get tacky, and that's when I added it on. And yeah, it's coming away really nicely. And I've used silver leaf on this particular bowl, but I also have some other kinds of metallic leaf. That's called copper burst, which is a really pretty one. And these are just plain gold. And yeah, it's come up really nice. And it's ready now to varnish, and then it'll take the sardines. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I had a lot of fun making these sardines and decorating the bowl for you. So have a go. Do all the usual things on the social media, on the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, put your comments in, put your photographs in. Don't forget to share with all your crafty friends. Tell them about the Laughter Crafter channel. And next week I'll come back with something really fun again. Have a great week laughing and crafting. Bye for now.